director of the Oregon Short Film Festival. We're coming up to our Oregon Short Film Festival Fall 2022 event at the Clinton Street Theater on Friday, October the 14th. And we are going to be screening a variety of short films that are 30 minutes or less of all genres, everything from animation to drama to comedy to documentary to everything you can think of. We screen it in Oregon in a nice potluck, if you will. And one of the films that has been nominated for the Best Documentary Film Award is going to be coming up. We're going to be screening it, called Love Without Parole. And we're going to talk to director Greg Womble and producer Elaine Witt. How are you today?
Great.
Good.
Good to see you both. Thank you for joining me, and congrats on being nominated for your award.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks. We're very excited.
So which one of you is going to tell me what exactly we're going to see in the theater? What's your synopsis? Can one of you share that with me?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Love Without Parole is a story about a man who spent 36 years in Alabama prisons for nonviolent crimes that he committed as a kid, basically. 2 as a juvenile, and then a 3rd as an adult or early adult. And he spent 36 years in prison. But, you know, some things happened to him during prison. He was lonely. He reached out for pen pals. He found one particular pen pal from New Jersey. Kathleen is her name. And they fell in love. They married at prison in Alabama. And they tried to make a go of it. And all the while, they were trying to finagle the legal system to get Michael's release, Michael being the person in prison. And when it was clear that he was in it for the long haul and some other factors, they divorced after about 4 years. And fortunately, after 25 more years of not seeing each other, barely talking, something really miraculous happened to Michael. And I don't mind going ahead and saying, and kind of key to the whole thing, he does get out of prison. And he's able to reconnect with Kathleen, and they are happily married today. And we wanted to tell a story that was grisly on one hand, the circumstances, the setting, the reason for Michael's imprisonment. But we also wanted to tell how love can win in a situation, how love can prevail. And along the way, so that's the basic story, but there was a group of nonprofit lawyers here in Birmingham, Alabama, who were key to getting him out of prison. And that's something I want to mention in a minute about sort of the bigger problem that our film touches on. But I think overall it's a feel-good movie, if you can believe it, about a prison. Hope was a big part of the Shawshank Redemption, a lot of people's favorite prison movie. And we think hope was a big part of this film. That he didn't die. It stayed in Michael's heart. It stayed in the people who loved him, and ultimately he was able to get out of prison.
Wow, yeah, it's a compelling story. The judges are very, very impressed just by the whole production of it. Just the way you laid this whole thing out is really awesome. What I'm going to start with you, Elaine. What motivated you to spend your time on this film?
Well, I'm much less experienced in documentary than Greg. I've done some corporate videos, but I'd always wanted to do a documentary. I am from Alabama, and Greg's lived here for basically his adult life. And it's no secret to either of us that Alabama's sentencing laws and its prisons are just a travesty. There's just so much injustice and so many wasted lives. So, and I also know the people at Appleseed at this nonprofit law center. So when I heard the story of Michael and Kathleen, I knew that it was a story that had to be told, because it's a love story that encapsulates a really important social justice issue that's important right now in our communities here in Alabama. And it's even got a little sugar on top, and so I reached out to Greg, and he also, it was just kind of taken with the parallel and the juxtaposition of a love story within this really terrible situation of our criminal justice system. So it just felt like a movie that needed to be made and seen.
I was sort of looking for my next thing. I had done a couple of short documentaries before, and my last one was on this experience that I had with the writer Hunter S. Thompson back in the 80s. So this could not be any further, more different than that experience. But I tend to lean toward personal stories in my filmmaking, and this just rung all kind of bells. I'd always admired Elaine's work. She was a journalist for the Birmingham Post-Herald, which is no longer, but was a fine newspaper in our city. And so I wanted a chance to work with her, and the pieces just really fell together. I mean, we talked to Alabama Appleseed. We said, look, we don't really know the story we want to tell, but we know some of the elements of it. But if you'll trust us with, because I mean, Michael is still their client, So if anybody was going to say, hey, you can't tell this story because our client is in this kind of, he's still, there's still a few legal things that he's wrangling with, and so they were like, tell the story, and they're, we were obviously creatively independent from them, but they were a big help. And everybody that we've shown it to so far, it seems to touch a lot of people. And I guess a lot of people don't know that. I mean, a lot of people know that Alabama is behind the rest of the country in a lot of ways, but on the correction system is like so far behind. It's so far back in the 19th century in terms of just grotesque injustices that we just could not tell the story. And also, I have kind of an interest in, and I don't think I even mentioned this to Elaine originally, but I just have kind of a heart for these guys that are coming out of prison. I've never experienced it myself, but when you get out of an Alabama prison after 36 years, Michael got $10 for every year he served, and the clothes he walked in on. I mean, they may have gotten some. I think maybe Alabama Appleseed got him some jeans and a shirt before, so he could leave prison. But there's very little support. There's very little recovery from that. So Alabama Appleseed and a lot of other agencies pick up the slack there, help these former offenders to get back with their, to start getting a life back. We don't cover that in the film, like how did he get his life back? We really just try to stay focused in that. It's a 27-minute film, so it's longer than a lot of shorts, but we could have done a lot more with it story-wise, but we wanted to stay focused on the love story and on Michael's journey and getting out.
Yeah, that's powerful. Very powerful. Did you learn anything during the production of this? I'll go to you, Elaine. What did you learn?
I'll tell you what, when you meet these men, not just Michael, but his friends, actually, the people who were also released through the efforts of Appleseed and who are in the reentry process together, you just see the waste of so many years is that people who are put away for crimes that they committed in their teens and 20s, they miss all the opportunities to build a career, to have a family, to build a social network that give us, a rich old age when we get to be in our 60s and 70s. And so they come out not having an opportunity to build any of that. But for the most part, the people that we've met, I mean, actually to a person, they're gentle, really lovable people deserving of having a life. And so the tragedies are just compounded, but it's been a real privilege and a pleasure to get to know these men and to be able to highlight Appleseed's work.
Okay. And what about you, Greg?
I guess I would just put a big Alabama amen on that. I did want to mention too that, and I kind of skipped through this part. The reason that Michael had a life without parole, and for those people who need it spelled out, that means you were sent to prison to die, and he was sent to prison to die as a 21-year-old man for a couple of crimes in which no one was hurt, and one drug possession thing. I mean, but at the time, there was a 3 strikes and you're out. A lot of people know that term, Habitual Offender Act. And he just had to, get 3 strikes and by God, he was out. So, I mean, it's still something we're struggling to reform in the court systems today. And Alabama Appleseed is also working on that from an advocacy and lobbying standpoint. But that was sort of the circumstance. And I guess I'd also say that I just learned a lot about I learned not to look at these guys in the news footage, these guys with the jumpsuits and the flip-flops that they have to wear and the crowded dormitories. And I mean, these guys just went through the hottest summer of any summer we've ever had in Alabama with no air conditioning in that dormitory. And the suicide rate and the harm is beyond belief in this prison. And Alabama, for the most part, stays mum about it, ignores it, or their response is, well, let's build some more prisons. So that's what they're doing. But without getting too political about it, I did learn to see those people as people and not just like a group, like this population, et cetera, et cetera. I learned to see them as people, and I hope people that see our film will feel the same way after they see it.
Well, you're bringing an incredible level of awareness about this issue, and so I think people are really going to enjoy it in theater. I think they'll enjoy it as much as the judges did. And I got to ask you, what do you have planned for the future? What do you working on next, Elaine?
I'm looking for my next project.
She won't do another one with me.
That is not true. I was so lucky when I had this story because I was like, wow, great story. Wish I knew how to make a documentary. But do I know somebody that knows how to make a documentary? And Greg
there you go.
Directed the film and had such a wonderful creative vision for it.
Well, thank you for that, Elaine. I appreciate it. My next thing, hopefully, it's kind of between two things, but I'm a big jazz fan, and I've always been fascinated with Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, the jazz vocal group from the late 50s, early 60s. And they really changed vocal jazz in a lot of interesting ways. And so I am in the early process, like research process of a documentary on Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. And I've got a true story that a friend of mine told me. Again, just one of those things that just sort of light a little fire back there, and whether I do that project next or one after next, I don't know yet, but it's going to be fun either way.
All right. Well, I'm sure the quality of this one that you put out, this is pretty amazing. So I'm sure the next project is going to look really, really good. I appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you two wanted to cover before we get out of here?
Well, we are so grateful to you, Michael, for this interview and for including us in your festival. And we're very grateful to the judges and all the supporters of the Oregon Short Films Festival to have an opportunity to screen our film with you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and appreciate this opportunity too, Michael. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate you, and hopefully we'll get to see you or some members of your team at the festival just in 4 weeks. So We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for your time today.